Hey, everybody, and welcome to the last session, or more precisely, last roundtable for our Full Funnel Summit. As promised, we made a special session for everybody. We invited enterprise leaders. We have Sam, enterprise account executive, Raf, as well, enterprise account executive, and PT, VP of sales. And for everybody, it would be a fantastic opportunity to learn from experienced sales reps what is the role of sales in account-based marketing. You can ask straightforward questions if you are in marketing, how you can get sales buy-in, right? So all of this. And I think I will pass microphone to Vlad. Vlad can start with the intros.
So thank you so much for taking the time and joining. I would just like to ask everyone to give a quick intro of yourself, your role, and the company, and we can start with the questions. But I also like to ask the audience, don't be shy, post your questions in the QA section. We'll bring them up. We did prepare a few of our own, but we always prefer to offer the audience the chance to interact. So let's start just in the order that you appear here. Sam, would you like to give a quick intro of yourself and the company that you work for?
Everyone, Sam Madhu here. I'm a part of a team called Certain. We do background checks and pre-employment screening, and I am on the enterprise account team here at Certain. It's nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. Raf, would you like to give a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. My name is indeed Raf. I'm based in Belgium. I'm part of the sales team at Customs for Trade. We sell software to automate customs processes to enterprise companies.
All right, thank you, Raf. PT?
My name's PT Weinberg. I am the founding partner at Charlesgate, which is based in Boston, Massachusetts, in the U.S. We do primarily property management and new development marketing, so leasing up big apartment buildings or selling out condo projects.
Awesome, thank you. I think it's really good to have three very different actually cases. We have Sam from Certain, which is kind of like broad market, a lot of different companies that need background checks. We have Raf from Customs from Trade, quite a niche market, and then PT, even in a way more niche, being focused on a very specific market in even like a specific geography where you are. So I think we'll get a good mix. So let's start with the first question. As they say, like hindsight is 2020. We always know best when we look at the past. And from the perspective that you have right now, having been a part of a successful ABM program, how would you describe the benefits of this kind of an approach, account-based marketing approach for sales specifically? And maybe this time let's start with PT. From your perspective, what is the advantage of ABM for sales?
Well, I mean, I think the advantage that I found with ABM is it really kept you focused, right? Like we have such a broad range of prospects, and kind of really peeling it back a layer and saying, okay, instead of just going for projects, like let's look at who's doing these projects. Let's get a consolidated list of accounts of the people we want to cultivate relationships with, and then let's attack them, on an account-based basis versus, again, just kind of, looking at different news sources and different data sources to identify projects and really focus on the accounts themselves. And that really helped, narrow scope and again, create a level of focus that enabled a better process.
Absolutely. Sam, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what PT said, and then alignment. Honestly, like alignment with marketing was really huge for us. We were pretty much siloed, as crazy as that sounds, within our structure. Everyone was doing their own thing on the marketing side and then the sales side. So it's good to just connect frequently with each other and understand, like, hey, what are they actually doing in their day to day, and understand. And then you actually have like an understanding of oh, this is why they did things and pivot. And it actually has changed a lot of how we do things today. And there's more collaboration going on. And then even just the new tips and types of outreaching, and then the focus on specific industries and being able to specifically track that in a time period, that really helped too.
And I wonder, just from your perspective, how did that alignment help the sales in terms of results, process?
Yeah, I mean, a lot in terms of process. There's a lot of processes that were like within our CRM that were actually not even really connected that we thought they were. So it actually brought things back and really just like honed down on like, okay, we weren't even tracking this specific piece. And there's so much insight out to it, especially with some of the other tools that we had. It helped us like actually get more out of the tools that we had by having that alignment too.
Okay. Raf, do you have some thoughts on the benefits of ABM from sales perspective?
Yeah, I think from my point of view, it helped to get a sort of a new angle to target sort of the very high level enterprise companies that we're targeting, and also the high level people within those organizations. So we already had an outbound cadence that we were doing, heavily personalized, but by doing the ABM approach, I think we realized, or we saw actually, that we were able to connect to some very high level people in the companies that we were targeting, who weren't answering to any of our outreaches before, just because we took a sort of another angle to it. So I think that was very great to see. And I think additionally, because you sort of start building an audience, it started compounding, and you get a broader reach much quicker than you would do when doing your personalized outreach, just person to person.
Thank you so much. Before we'll actually move forward to our other questions, I have already seen this fantastic question from Sally. So when you were first approached with doing ABM at your company, were you skeptical? And if so, what changed your mind? Let's start with you, Sam.
Yeah, that's a good question, Sally. Was I skeptical? Of course, as a salesperson, I was skeptical, and I was like, "Hey, we're already doing so many things. Like, hey, when are we gonna have time to do this?" But honestly, like, I was like, we need to try something different too, because there's so many things that have changed in the market, especially like since like even the last 2 years, things changed faster than ever. So I had to be open to it, and I was open to it. And then the big thing is you have to find that one person that was actually responsive in the sales org, and then that really will help facilitate everything as like a stakeholder. But you do need to find that at least that one person on that sales team. And once you do, just like hang on to them, and that person will reap the rewards of it too.
Thank you.
We were so lucky to have you as that person. Thank you, Sam.
Raf, what would you say? What was your experience?
Yeah, I think I'm a bit maybe the exception to the rule here, because I was very much involved in bringing ABM in. I was sort of from a sales point of view, really pushing for it and actually trying to bring it in quite quickly, because I realized, of course, we all try to find ways to build pipeline on a daily basis, and we were doing whatever we could, but I think there were possibilities to do it in a more creative way. And I know we're in a very niche industry where there's a lack of information available for potential buyers to get. So if we would take that angle to do these thoughtful posts and to comment and really bring value to that community, I saw it as a way to expand our reach and our brand awareness, and hopefully get some meetings in. So yeah, I think I tried to bring it in from a sales point of view, definitely.
I think after your reply, lots of people who are listening to us live will just pick up your profile and send to executives saying, "Hey, can we get more people like Raf in our organization?" But jokes aside, PT, what was your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit like Raf, I wasn't overly skeptical. I thought it was a really good concept, and it's something we had talked about for a while before we teamed up with Fullfunnel, and as we started to really execute on it, we were really lucky that we had pretty immediate results. And I think Sam mentioned it too, but it really helped us align marketing and sales, and I think that was really critical in our ability to kind of execute on the ABM, and really, again, it get quick results, and those results have continued, through the first quarter of this year too. So, I was all for it, and it again kind of proved its worth early on.
All right. So if I'm thinking about ABM, it's even in the name. It says marketing, account-based marketing, which is probably unfortunate because it's definitely, like all of you shared, it is a joint effort between marketing and sales. But what would you say to folks? What are the actual activities and responsibilities of a salesperson within an ABM, ABX, whatever we call it, within such an account-based program? And I just want to start with Sam, because I know that, Sam, you're also involved not only in doing it yourself, but also involving new colleagues from your team and kind of like, passing on the knowledge and teaching the others. So I think you have also that kind of perspective. So I would like to hear that from you.
Yeah, so Vlad, from like my perspective, like actually doing, it's like data in, data out, right? So from our perspective, the sales team actually has to be doing the work of personalized message, of actually DMing people, of if there is insights or comments on some of the posts that we've been doing, engaging with them, starting conversations on LinkedIn, making sure it bubbles up like that. It's almost up to the point of, hey, we keep on seeing this guy everywhere, or we keep on seeing certain everywhere, what's happening with that. So actually putting in the work of commenting on things, like not just saying, hey, nice post, but like insightful, actually providing like something or some feedback, or even sometimes something controversial, and then putting them into a cadence where you're actually following up properly and not just asking for something, but also providing just kind of like Raph was saying earlier, just like providing some different type of kind of value rather than the typical one or call to action that you've had in the past. So one thing is just like data in, data out from the sales team, like actually putting in the information and tracking things.
So when you say data in, data out, or is it also about just the effort in the results?
Totally.
You will get as much result as the effort you put as a salesperson, really. How does that look like from your perspective, PT? So the activities, like let's say day to day. Okay, so yeah, practical day-to-day sales activities that maybe you didn't do before ABM that you're doing more of right now.
I mean, I think there's quite a few, but I think the one thing that has helped us is, again, we have a pretty large range of accounts to attack. And so what we would do is we would set, a number, whether it was 10 or 15 as a goal for the week to really go after and connect with. And then we would, leave those in the pipe, in the focus pipeline, if you will, for, maybe up to 2 or 3 weeks. And then we've either gotten a successful connection, or we realize that, maybe we need to put some on the back burner and bring new accounts in to focus on. So we had a pretty, set cadence of both number of accounts and time that we would put them in what we would call active focus, right? And then, again, I think that really helped us. Some of the social selling that we brought into this was, certainly new for me, right? Like my partner's the one who has the real big LinkedIn presence. And, we were going through this just yesterday, but it really has enabled us now with consistent social selling to see what works and what doesn't. And it's really interesting that, like, for one, there's kind of 3 main guys at our company that are out there socially and generating business, so to speak. My posts, when, certain types of posts were getting tons of engagement, and we were able to identify that other types weren't, and, kind of great data, because for our third kind of partner, the posts that he was getting great engagement on were the same types of posts that I was getting no engagement on. Right. And so we've been able to identify that, like, hey, for me, the posts about, wins and kind of like humble brags were the ones that were getting real engagement. And the ones where I was trying to, be more of a, add value content, right? Like they were getting nothing for engagement, but when Todd posts, the sort of value add, conversational inducing posts, he's getting tons of engagement on those. And then when he posts about like a win or something, he was getting no engagement. So it's just really interesting. And we've been able to identify that, certain posts work for my profile, certain posts work for his, and then certain posts work for Mike's. And that's been a really valuable piece of this, because obviously LinkedIn is just such a huge source of ABM for us, right? And trying to engage with new prospects and clients. And so that's something that I would say is a derivative of our ABM campaign that really has helped us, get laser focused on the type of content that we're pushing out individually within our team.
This is very interesting. Very interesting. Haven't heard that before.
It's funny. We have a content director that does a lot of that posting, on my account, and we work together. And she does the same thing with Todd. And she was very ingrained in the ABM campaign as well, even though she's more of a behind the scenes team member. And it was really interesting to see how how the different posts got different levels of engagement. And I see someone, Sally, making a comment there, but it really does. It's the authenticity, I think, is reflective of your personality and those who know you within the professional world. And, it just turns out that my people are way more interested in the stuff we're up to. And, Todd's people are way more interested in, the nitty gritty industry insight. So it's just an interesting juxtaposition that, again, we've been able to now identify, and we're going to really focus on having those specific types of posts for each of us to, again, just really ramp up engagement. And, we've kind of found what works and what doesn't, so to speak.
Awesome. I just like to point to everybody, like you're active in a very specific niche. So you're going after developers of new projects, right? That's already a niche. And by the way, you're active in Boston. So developers are not the people that you would normally expect to be active on LinkedIn. And then you're not like internationally or even nationally in your case, right? Active.
You're like quasi-regional. Yeah, we're quasi-regional right now, and obviously we have growth aspirations.
It is very local,
LinkedIn
is working for you. So I just wanted to share this with everybody, because a lot of people are saying, but my buyers are not active on LinkedIn, which totally could be the case. And LinkedIn is not the only place where you should be looking at. And I know that you're doing many other things than just the LinkedIn. You have also your local networks and events and all the other stuff. But still, it is in some cases when you're in a niche and maybe you think that they won't be active, etc. It actually could be an opportunity, because there's nobody else almost who is doing that in your niche, I assume, right? So that makes you stand out immediately. That was just a side comment. But would like to also hear from Rax, from your perspective, what are kind of the main responsibilities and activities you see sales should be doing within ABM?
Yeah, I actually agree with lots of the things that have been said already by 7PT. I think indeed I wasn't super involved on doing in the operational day-to-day. It's one of the team here, but it's clear that of course the sales team needs to put in the work in building that audience, in engaging with your buyers, with the community, and being thoughtful in the way they do this. And we really seeing the positive outcomes of it. It's a fun anecdote. We had a conference. There was a conference, like not something that we organized, but it was a conference where our CEO visited, and people in that audience were really talking about that we had a superstar in the team who knows so much about customs, and he was putting out great content while he's actually quite a new joiner in the team. And so it's very great to see that it's really spreading within the community. And I think it's very interesting what PT was saying. I think one of the tasks that I think sales has to towards marketing as well is coming up with sort of content ideas, understanding what your community needs and feeding that back to marketing so that they are able to create relevant posts. And I think it's very interesting to see. So far, we have seen that most posts that work for me also work for other people in the team. I think as a next step, we could be looking to diversify and let our CEO, for example, post different things because he has a completely different network than we have, which is way more business focused, but is also our target audience. While we maybe have a bigger audience with the more technical people, so they want really that nitty gritty. So I think it's an interesting next step to take in when we are further developing our ABM strategy.
I love how you're learning from each other already, and your point about feeding back the information to marketing. We actually had Sam's colleague from marketing, who is a content marketer in Certain. She did a live podcast with us, sharing her experience, and for her, it was very new and very different way of working and creating content. And the one thing she repeatedly mentioned was how that constant interaction week to week with you and getting that feedback from you, and also like moving from kind of a long-term planned content calendar to being more flexible, to understanding what are the accounts that are engaging right now in the pipeline, and how could we adjust our content so that you can basically use it this week on the accounts that you have. So this back and forth between marketing and sales, even on the level of content, I found that interesting that you mentioned that, Raf,
Yeah,
and actually also your colleague.
I think if I can add one thing to that, I think we're in a very regulatory space, so lots of things are regulated and it's technical. So of course, if you have a new feature or something, it's quite obvious that marketing will start drafting a post on those technical things, while we as a sales team, of course, hear on a day-to-day from our potential clients or clients real business problems that we can solve. So you also change a bit the way the tone of voice and what you speak about, really about the business value and things, actual challenges that your audience is facing, rather than to be on the surface level or on the feature side of things. So I think it's a very good alignment to have.
Yeah, I think Andre, you did you called this out, like a litmus test for good content is, will your salespeople actually be happy to share that on their profile? If they're not happy to share that on their profile, maybe you're missing the mark.
Yeah, absolutely true. So it's just literally sounds like, will your VP of sales send this piece of content to the key account, right? Because no VP of sales will ever send piece of content that will kind of position himself or herself as an amateur in eyes of the prospect, right? That's the key. So you all guys mentioned that, first of all, the way how sales are engaging with the target accounts is different inside account-based marketing programs, right? And Raf, you had an experience. You said that you were not active part, which is, I mean, depends on how we look at it, because you are the main subject matter expert and you are doing the kind of, let's say, key engagement activities. But at the same time, you managed SDR, right? So in this case, we didn't have typical program setup, because usually we have in the pilot either account executive or SDR. In this case, we had both account executives and SDRs, right? So I would love to combine two things, or basically two questions, and ask you guys, with the hindsight of running these ABM programs, what would you say is the bare minimum that sales should allocate to ABM in percentage or whatever? And the second follow-up question, lots of marketers that I know struggle to explain these activities to VP of sales and get buy-in for that necessary percentage of time. So how would you say, like, let's say, what is the bare minimum time that should be allocated, and how to justify this to the sales leadership to get that dedicated sales rep? Let's start with you, Sam.
Yeah, in terms of like a minimum time, I would say as a minimum, like an hour a day. So like 5 hours a week at a minimum. And I think that is like a fair like starting point, and then it progresses through like the program and how you feel comfortable. And actually, at some point, maybe you even become more efficient during it because you like learn different types of strategies. But I think at like 5 hours minimum during the week to truly get things out of it. And in terms of like the buy-in, like so in my case, I had to also kind of get buy-in for my VP. And a big thing is like, this is part of my job already. So this is a different facet of outreach, and it's just really practical to do so since no one else on the team was doing that type of outreach and creating new types of content with the help of our marketing team. So it was actually kind of a win-win for everyone because I'm still doing outreach. I'm reaching out to new people, and it's actually more it's more focused with that. And then I had that specific time block for just the ABM stuff, which I think helps you with the buy-in, and then you can see specifically what was happening from it.
Thank you. PT, what would you say?
Sorry, I wanted to unmute there, so no background noise for you guys. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's probably really dependent on your industry, right? I mean, for me, it's a huge part of my day-to-day, prospecting. I would say I'm on average allocating a couple hours a day strictly to, the ABM campaign, and then hopefully, getting the results that I want, which leads to meetings with people via the campaign, right? So I would say day to day, it's probably 25%, 20% of my time.
And from the buy-in perspective, so let's say if marketing would come again to you, what can get your buy-in to justify this 20% or 25% of time for the sales rep?
Well, I mean, I think what for us anyways, what could justify it is the results we've had, right? I mean, we've landed a bunch of new accounts through the ABM campaign, and we've got a lot of traction on other accounts. So, I think at least for us, this is something that we've really only been implementing the past few quarters, that, it's very clear that it's working and that it should be the focal point of what our sales reps, which right now is really just myself and one other team member. And, again, I think it's probably somewhere in the 20-25% range of time. And to me, that's totally appropriate based on, the results we've had. So it's easy to justify to anyone, that's where we should be focused.
Thank you. And I'm just wondering, what if, let's say, what if you didn't start the pilot, right? So let's say an ABM lead or marketing director comes to you and says, hey, we want to do ABM with you. We have kind of an idea of how that will help us to generate pipeline, and we'll need like, let's say a sales rep dedicating 25% of his or her time to ABM program. What arguments would you like to see that could persuade you?
I'm sorry, what was the last part? What arguments?
Yeah, what arguments would persuade you to give, let's say, 25% of your time to ABM?
Yeah, I mean, at least for me, it was, it really wasn't an argument. I mean, I think it was pretty easy to see, again, why that amount of time is justified based on, the immediacy of the results we were getting during the pilot. And, since then, it's just enabled, a level of focus and, narrowing scope for me to, continue to utilize it, through the fourth quarter and through what's, the first quarter is pretty much over here as well. So, I mean, again, I don't think there was that much persuasion needed, and certainly did that sea change in the results of revenue generation in Q4 and Q1 is kind of all the persuasion I need to keep being motivated to allocate that amount of time to it.
Perfect, thank you, Raf.
Yeah.
You're actually involved SDR, right? So what's your experience? What would you say is the bare minimum SDR who became a famous superstar in the custom segment? What's the let's say bare minimum SDR should give to ABM, and how to justify it?
Yeah, indeed. I think I need to shine a light on my colleague who did indeed most of the work. I tried to back it up, but it's not always feasible. I think in the beginning, he it was a lot of his time in the very beginning, because it's still finding your footing. How does the cadence work? What are the jobs that you need to do, and how do you do them with all your other work combined? But I think in the end, I think indeed it was a sort of 1 hour and a half, 2 hours a day. I think sort of makes is the time he used. And yeah, complementary to that, of course, he did some other outbound work. Yeah, I think that 1.5 to 2 hours a day is, I think, a good starting point, especially when you know the drill, you know what to do, you know how it works. Then that should be enough, I think.
And the further is just, again, the last question. Let's say you don't have any metrics, you don't have any result, and let's say your marketing colleague comes to you and says, hey, I want to do this with you, but I need a sales rep who would be doing these activities for 2 hours a day. What will kind of change your mind, or what will persuade you to approve it?
Yeah, I find it a difficult question as well, because I, again, didn't really need the persuasion, to be honest. I think it's very clear, if you have a lack of pipeline and the things that you're doing are sort of working or not completely working, you need to open your mind and try new things. And I think this concept looked good for me. It's bringing value to your buying, to your target audience, which in our space, there's not many companies doing this, so you're different than the rest. For me, that's a bit what you're trying to get at. If everybody's sending out automated sequences, nobody will like it. So try to do something different than other people do to get their attention and to bring value. So if you don't have any metrics, I think you need to do something else, or you will not get any business. So that's basically, I think, enough persuasion that you need. And I think as an extension to that, it's of course critical that you also report back internally in the organization with the wins that you're having. And if it's not yet a meeting, that you need to look into what are the other things that you can report on. Are there sort of signs developing that it is actually working, that you're reaching more people than you were before? And if those are there, then monitor them closely and see if anything comes out, and then be agile enough to change if not.
Oh, I think you bring up the question that we wanted to ask next. So what's very clear from a sales perspective, you all have clear idea about what's valuable. It's deals, it's sales, obviously, quotas, right, that you're hitting. But you also mentioned, okay, you know what, we have long sales cycles. I know that PT, you have sales cycles too, sometimes even 3 years. But even like Sam, Raf, you have long sales cycles as well. And you know that, if you're running the pilot for a quarter, you can't really expect, and you have sales cycles of at least 6 months and then more, you can't really expect to see immediate revenue results. And you bring up a really good point, Raf. What are those metrics, kind of intermediate metrics, that you think people should be tracking and sharing, like you said, the wins, that maybe you did collect, track, share, or you believe others should do as well? So maybe, Raf, you mentioned yourself. So what are some of these metrics that you consider valuable as kind of an early signal?
Yeah, I think from our point of view, we didn't want to overcomplicate it. We didn't want to track too many metrics, because then it becomes just a bit noise. So we want to focus as well on what are we tracking. And of course, the obvious thing is the meetings and calls that you book and whatever, and deals that come out of there. But in the beginning, what we saw, and I think you guys helped us as well to see this, is like, what is your status quo? How well is your outbound working in the different channels that you're doing? And then sort of track, like, how is that changing? And from a LinkedIn point of view, it was very obvious that our SDR was not having that much of success with reaching out on LinkedIn. And quickly we saw people that started to react. So we were tracking that from a quantitative point of view, but also from a qualitative point of view. We had accounts that never replied to anything and then started to reply to what we were doing. So it was very quickly that you could see, okay, there are good signs. I think there was 1 or 2 weeks where we were like, okay, in the very early stages, we're not really seeing any engagement here, but then quickly it started to take off. So we were really just tracking the amount of positive engagements that we were having on LinkedIn, the impressions on our post compared to before, and the engagements on the post that we were doing, and the level of the quality of the engagement. Not just are people saying, "Oh, nice post," or liking it, but also are we seeing the people that we are targeting in enterprise companies, key decision makers, are they really engaging with our posts? And really not overcomplicate it with too many metrics, but keeping it simple. And I think a final thing that we did, and probably the others of you did as well, is sort of tracking those different pipelines from the cluster ICP to active focus, and see how it progresses and sort of builds, because that's the compounding effect, of course, if you're building the audience and you're getting more and more people to engage. But yeah, those three are basically it, I would say.
Okay, so you're a believer. You were the believer, right? And you were tracking these metrics. So super cool that you also realized the value of that. But Anna, I think she asked a good question, very, very much related to that. Okay, so you were tracking even engagement and the views of the posts, etc. But at what point do you believe sales management would start to see the value of the program? And I know you're still at a kind of in the middle of the pilot, but what would be your thoughts on this question?
I think for us it was rather quickly, because we were booking meetings with companies that we wanted to book meetings with, and we have indeed sales cycles which can take up to 2 years. And even then, after a month, we already had some meetings booked, which was a great result. And on top of that, you were really seeing the quality of the collaboration that we had with some accounts who had never replied to any of our outreaches before, and suddenly they were very open to speak. So I think that the hypothesis that we had coming into this was that we have an audience which is underserved in terms of quality content, and that quickly started showing itself. So I don't know if there was a clear point. There was a combination of actual meetings, of course, that always helps, but together also that the engagement was not just a vanity metric. It was clearly that it was quality engagement for quality accounts, and to back that up, the quality with sort of the impressions and so on and engagement, I think really helped to drive our point home, I think.
Love it. So it was also like the combination of setting the right expectations from the start, and then being able to show, hey, you know how we talked about this is actually what's happening. And by the way, it helps, of course, if you start booking meetings with those high value accounts. Any other metrics, maybe Sam or PT, that you wanted to add? I don't want to put you every time on the spot. If you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at, obviously meetings like Ralph said, but what we call how many qualified opportunities did we create, right? So, okay, we reached out to company X, we got engagement, we got a discovery call. Is there a real opportunity there, right? A specific building that we have an opportunity to get involved with, whether it was on the management side or the leasing side or the sales side. And so that qualified ops was really the next metric that would come from meetings that we tracked. And again, because similarly to these guys, we have a longer sales cycle, doesn't necessarily mean we're going to close a qualified opportunity within, a week or something like that. But, we were lucky enough where we did get some things that closed within the quarter, and then some things that spilled into Q1 that have closed, some things that are going to continue that we thought were high intent for Q1, but now they're spilling into Q2 and even Q3 as far as when we think we can close them. But that number of qualified opportunities was a key metric for us to keep an eye on, because obviously it's just, again, the law of averages / you got to execute on your sales program. But the more of those you have, the more you're going to end up closing in the more revenue that's going to come in. So that metric's really a big one on our end.
And Sam, with you onboarding or working with new colleagues from the sales team, helping show to the leadership, but also maybe to the other sales colleagues that, hey, this actually makes sense, it's working. What are maybe some of the early signals or other kinds of metrics that you are focused on or communicating to the colleagues?
I think outside of what like Rap and PT said, I think something for us that was interesting is like we do background checks like globally. So there's like always going to be people looking for background checks, but it's not often we're getting like the bigger companies, like the household names that you want to see, that we wanted to see and we're targeting. So I found it like pretty quickly, honestly, and still now we've noticed like bigger companies have been coming to the website and engaging, and sometimes even like putting in like links, and maybe they're not reaching out directly to me, but they've seen enough stuff from myself or even our company page that it's actually brought them to the website, and they've never been there before, and they're taking more actions or downloads them, and they're getting warmer and warmer into our funnel and having other people on our team reach out. And I think that's what our management saw. They're like, oh, this is like this company, and we've never seen this company ever reach out to us in the past or even like have any engagement. So little things like that weren't like, hey, this is like a direct meeting right away, but things of like bubbling to the surface to even getting into our like funnel in general were huge for sure.
And I remember, like for you, it was also like going up market, but also coming into the US from the home market in Canada, right? So, which previously is just like proven very difficult, obviously, like for anyone.
Yeah.
And so now being able to suddenly see those exact ICPs from the US that you were able to start engaging was a big deal as well, right? That helped.
Yeah, huge. Like in Canada, it's like we're a household name, but in the US, there's so many major players. And for us, we just need to get our brand awareness out there, and it's helped like tenfold because so many people are like reaching out in different areas, or oh, how did you? Because I always ask like, how did you hear about us? Or I always get our team to ask how people heard about us, and a lot of times they said, oh, I think I saw something on LinkedIn now, which was never the case before. Like that would never have been a comment. So like they're at least engaging, maybe not directly with a post that we send, but long term, it's just like subtly in their head, oh yeah, I remember this company does that. And it's these little things that also help accumulate over time too.
Love it. Thank you so much, guys. Basically, all your replies lead me to the next question. And also, I saw Lori asked it, so I will just put it in. What type of account insights would be helpful for marketing to provide you on an ongoing basis? And generally, what kind of help do you think, or basically, what kind of help is expected from marketing? So let's start with Raf.
Yeah, I think again, I was a bit less involved in the operational side of things, but I think it's just important that you align, of course, very well with marketing from the get-go on what type of insights you need. So you need to be very aligned on what profiles that we want to target, on what information we expect to have in our accounts. So I think it's mostly on alignment, but I don't think it's anything specific I would like to add here.
Okay, and from the, let's say, marketing support perspective, what do you think kind of key activities how marketing can support?
For us, it was mainly, of course, focused on the content creation part of things. It really helped because I think, for example, I was convinced of social selling already for a long time, but I struggled to start with it myself, to go up with a good tone of voice, with the content itself. It's always something that went on the back burner rather than to really do it. And I think working together with marketing helped us massively to start building a content library with good quality content, be more flexible on it, and helped everybody to join in doing what we are doing and helping us put out the right content.
Awesome, thank you. PT, what would you say? What kind of insights and help from marketing do you expect?
Yeah, so marketing took a real active role in our ABM. I mean, I think to Raf's point, I mean, content, right, is huge. So they would help with everything from, helping with the framework on posts. One other thing I didn't mention earlier, which I think was important, is when you asked about different metrics, we had specific LinkedIn metrics in our ABM program. So, how many connection requests per day did you send out? How many value add comments did you make each day? How many new accounts did you find, in Sales Navigator each day? So that was just a sidebar, but I think it was important to mention. back to marketing, creating one-sheeters that we could send out as follow-up, once we did make a connection. And, again, whether that was content that we thought would add value to our prospects, or just, content touting, our track record to try to, again, entice more engagement from those prospects. So, marketing worked very hard and still is on a day-to-day basis with our ABM campaign. And, even revamping parts of our website, to have case studies readily available, and creating case studies that we could send out to different prospects too, that, correlated to what they had going on. So, again, I think the overall message here, and obviously Sam and Ralph being very successful as well, is you really need to integrate marketing with your sales efforts. And it just is an engine that can really drive, help accelerate results.
Thank you. Sam, what would you add?
I had a huge help from our marketing team on the content side. We're lucky to have tons of really useful, insightful blog posts, and on our side, our content person is really good at gauging the pulse of current state of events, and creating and repurposing some of this content for us. So that was huge. Just make it easy for us to post something in our own words, provide the kind of content, and then we can put it in our own words to say this is obviously this is how I would speak towards something about that. I think that was really huge. And then also talking about similar topics or hot topics about the industry at the time were really good to roll on, and we'll continue to roll on those. And then also just providing some of the stuff on the CRM just to make it easy for people to actually attack some of it was also something where marketing could help a lot too. And they did help on our side.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And before we'll move to the last question, we still have a lot of people with us on staying online. Let us know, guys, how did you like the summit so far and this roundtable? Let us know in the chat. Would love to see your feedback. How was your experience? What did you learn? Share with us your experience. And let's move to the last question, Vlad.
All right. Let's say somebody considering implementing ABM, and you kind of want to warn them against maybe some mistakes, maybe some lessons learned or some mistakes to avoid, that I'm not saying that you made or experienced, but maybe have seen in other teams or anticipated people could be making, especially from sales perspective. What do you believe maybe are kind of a number one mistake to watch out, or a pitfall to watch out for when executing within an ABM framework? Anybody wants to share?
Yeah, I'll share. I mean, I think ultimately you need to trust yourself and your instinct and know what works for your business. And, again, all businesses are different, and each individual salesperson is different in their approach and their, just kind of the way they interact with other people. And so not to compromise authenticity by trying to, automate too much, for lack of a better term. And then also not to be afraid to challenge and or tweak a suggestion, right? Staffo had been used to working, in a lot of other industries, and stuff that may work in those industries just wasn't going to work for us. And, again, we had really good collaborative conversations where we said, okay, look, I get what you're saying in concept. That's not going to work for our audience, but this may. And so we're going to take that concept and we're going to tweak it to something that's going to be effective for our industry. And I think that that's really important. And yes, you're teaming up and you're getting help and you're getting an awesome platform and framework to learn and to implement and go execute to increase your sales. But don't lose sight of the fact that at the end of the day, your business better than anybody, and make sure that, again, you're not just blindly following a blueprint that components of which just may not work for your business or just need to be done differently for your business.
Awesome. Thank you. Makes a lot of sense. Sam, you have any thoughts? pitfalls.
Yeah,
and
I would just add on to what PT said. It's just like, yeah, there's just understand the nuance in your business and like knowing that some things aren't gonna hit or land as well, and just be cautious of those type of things, and just like double down on like what you are seeing that is working, and also maybe what you're not seeing a lot of on LinkedIn that you'd like to see. Sometimes things like that too, but that's it.
Awesome. Raf.
Yeah, I agree with what the other two guys are saying as well. It's indeed really doubling down on what's working, and don't be afraid to try things out. And if they don't work, fine. And I really know your business and do what works for you. I think from our point of view as well, I think the team who was responsible for the ABM was aligned on what to expect and what needed to be done. I think in the beginning we could have done a better job to make sure that the reporting that we do internally to sales management and the rest of the AEs could have been a bit better, I think, from the get-go, because of course it takes a bit time to ramp up. And since our reporting wasn't too clear in the very beginning, it's sort of kept the skepticism a bit too long while it was actually not needed. So I think to make sure that you really align on what metrics that are important for your business and on what you want to report, and start from the beginning to feed that back into the organization, so everybody's feeling the positive energy that you are feeling from the program.
And that's it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I think it was all of you provided brilliant replies. Thank you so much, guys, for coming and sharing sales perspective about account-based marketing. I feel it is often missed. We as marketers quite often just stay in our marketing bubble, not looking outside what's happening on the sales. And I can reflect a lot on this because I have spent my first 5 years of my career in sales and then switched to marketing. So kind of know how the things are looking at two sides. So appreciate all of your takeaways, and also appreciate your feedback, guys. Everybody who has attended our summit, thanks a lot for the questions. Thanks a lot for the fantastic engagement and for the feedback. We appreciate it and happy to hear that you enjoyed it a lot. Thank you so much, everybody, and hopefully we'll be able to arrange this event in person and invite all of you. Take care.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.